but I was able to have laparoscopic, and it's actually kind of funny because you still have like 5 scars, but when you get the 5 scars and when you're going through like that healing process, everybody comes in and counts the scars. Oh, let me count the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So it at first annoyed me, and then I thought it was funny because as the follow-up appointments came, I kind of made that a game, saying who's going to be the first person to count the scars, you know? So
Yes.
it was just finding humor in like the small moments.
And that's something you talk about a lot in the book, which I love, is finding humor. It's so important in life. Can you expand upon that a little bit, like for anyone going through this diagnosis, maybe they have surgery or not, or treatment?
Absolutely. I think that humor is really important because otherwise, you're right, your mind does go down the rabbit hole and you keep thinking, I don't really think I ever thought, why me? But I did a lot of the, how did I get to this point? And when you do, then your mind just hijacks you and your pulse races and your chest pounds. And you really have to make a conscious decision to say, okay, how do I get myself out of this? And one of the things that I've always relied on is humor. So even, I'm less than, I think I was maybe 24 hours post-op, and I was talking to my sister at this point, and I told her, I'm just going to throw caution to the wind and try something new. And she's basically asking me, well, what exactly does that look like? And I said, skydiving. And she
Oh
said,
my goodness.
she said, really? Hang on a second. She said, aren't you still afraid of heights? And I said, yes. And she said, why don't you start with having Carl, who's my husband, having Carl just push you off the bed and see how you feel about falling from that height before you try skydiving. And it was so funny and just like so true to my sister. But, my guts are hurting at this point and I'm still in a lot of pain. So I have this pillow pushed up against the area and I'm just laughing so hard I can't breathe. I tried to really cultivate those moments and just silly little things that would make me laugh and help me remember, hey, I'm still here, I'm still alive. People around me aren't going to treat me any differently because I have had this cancer and I have a lot of support. So evidently, I should choose humor more often because it's been such a good circumstance for me before.
This is True Voice Unfiltered, the podcast where raw truth meets real transformation. I'm your host, Daria Anne, ghostwriter, content strategist, and holistic health warrior. No, I'm not a doctor, nurse, nutritionist, or any kind of medical professional, and this show does not dispense medical advice. I'm just an informed patient sharing what I've learned on my own healing journey. I also interview accomplished authors, speakers, entrepreneurs, and functional medicine practitioners who are transforming lives. If you're ready to break free from the sick care system, reclaim your health, and transform your life, you're in the right place. Let's get unfiltered.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to episode 21 of True Voice Unfiltered. I have an inspirational guest today, and she's here to talk about a topic that unfortunately has affected most of us, if not all of us, and that is cancer. Whether we've had our own cancer diagnosis and journey or have witnessed loved ones going through cancer. Her name is Lisa Ellis, and she is the author of Rising After Cancer: 5 Secrets to Healing with Hope, Humor, and Heart. Lisa Ellis is an entrepreneur, real estate investor, and now, after a life-altering diagnosis, a proud cancer survivor. Before stepping into entrepreneurship, she spent years building a successful career in corporate finance. The discipline, resilience, and problem-solving skills she developed in the corporate world served her well, yet nothing could have prepared her for the journey that cancer survivorship would bring. Having lived all over the country, including Hawaii, Lisa brings a grounded perspective to life, healing, and what it truly means to start over after cancer. Her new book, Rising After Cancer, shares the raw truth about the chaos of diagnosis, the upheaval that followed, and the surprising courage she discovered along the way. With honesty, hope, and a touch of humor, she now helps others navigate the path to healing, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually, after treatment ends. Today, she continues to build businesses, mentor new entrepreneurs, and share her story so others know they're not alone. Her mission is simple: to remind people that no matter how hard life hits, you can rise with hope, humor, and heart. And when I asked Lisa about her True Voice story, she said, "For years, I lived in the fast-paced world of entrepreneurship, always focused on the next goal. Then cancer stopped me in my tracks. Suddenly, I was afraid, vulnerable, and those goals I had been chasing no longer mattered. My sole purpose became survival and healing. That shift changed every part of my life and ultimately led me to write Rising After Cancer, which is what brings me to True Voice today." So please join me in welcoming author Lisa Ellis to True Voice Unfiltered. Lisa, welcome to True Voice Unfiltered. I'm so glad you're here with me today.
Thank you, Daria. I appreciate the invitation.
Well, I'm really excited to talk about your book and, of course, this topic of cancer, which unfortunately touches just about everyone. But before we get into that, Lisa, I know I read your bio before I brought you on into the studio, but can you tell everybody a little bit about your background? Because you are so accomplished. I want to give you a chance to tell everybody about yourself in your own words.
Thank you. It's actually funny that you say that because I always joke, I feel a little lazy. I started my career really as a corporate financial controller. So I had a lot of corporate experience and I really thought that that was my path, but it became more evident that I was more of an entrepreneur. So I've done small business consulting and real estate investing and pretty much tried or dabbled in a lot of different things before writing my book. So you can imagine with a cancer diagnosis on top of that, it really threw me for a loop and I had to refocus to say, okay, health is the number one priority, which hadn't been true for me before. It was the next goal and the next big thing and the next idea I'm working on.
Yeah, health is definitely wealth.
Definitely.
For sure. So I want to ask you, Lisa, like before we really get into your diagnosis, were you experiencing any symptoms or what was that path like from maybe having some symptoms to receiving a diagnosis? What were you experiencing?
Well, it started out pretty benign, and I hate to use that word given, the fact that I did have cancer, but it was really just like normal stuff you wouldn't think about. So maybe a little bit of irregular bleeding, things like tender muscle that just felt like, okay, I shouldn't have maybe tried that new yoga move. And, I pulled something down there. So I really wasn't even thinking that cancer was the potential until I got a little bit further through the process and thought, well, okay, maybe that is, if nothing else is explaining that. So some of the testing that I did really was a lot of the symptoms could have been chalked up to being like perimenopausal and those types of things. And then I just didn't feel right. I just thought, okay, I'm not really sure about this. Can I move on? What would you test me if that wasn't the actual thing? So if it wasn't just menopause, what would you do next? And really just thought I needed to pursue that for my own peace of mind.
Right now, were doctors telling you like everything's normal, not to worry as you were experiencing these symptoms?
Well, they were giving me a lot of, I would say, best case scenarios now in hindsight, but really saying, okay, you're doing a lot of things right with your health. I've been a little bit of a beefy lady kind of all of my life. So I knew weight was the issue, but I just thought, okay, based on my health and based on my history, this wouldn't even enter into the picture because I've been super healthy. I've been trying to do all of those things and eat better, keep my weight under control, just really doing what you would think would lead to health and longevity and all of those things. So I think maybe that they didn't even think that that was a possibility either because nothing else pointed to it. So I think that's really what they leaned on.
Right. So, but you kept listening to your intuition, it sounds like. Because as a Hashimoto's patient, I know that that's what I did, hearing your labs are normal and knowing, no, this is not right.
Yes, and that's exactly correct. And I would say my husband and I had lived in Hawaii for almost 10 years. And Hawaii,
Wow.
it was a lot of fun. Hawaii has a lot of what they call native intelligence, basically paying attention to, the water and the waves and wind and just preparation along those lines, as well as going into like some of the Eastern medicinal practices. And I would say that experience really fine-tuned how I listen to my body and how I pay attention. So maybe if I hadn't had that experience in Hawaii, I might not have had the same thought process about, hey, I'm uncomfortable. What can I do to make myself comfortable? And then do that thing. And that's really what I did because I wasn't comfortable. I thought, something still feels off. Let's continue. What's the next thing?
That's excellent. And that's pretty
Yeah.
amazing because it sounds like you were pretty type A, maybe prior to living in Hawaii. So Hawaii taught you maybe to slow down, become more mindful, and get in better touch with your intuition. Is that correct?
Absolutely. That is correct. Because I would definitely say everybody had talked about, mind, body, spirit. And I
Yeah.
was like, mine are totally divergent. They're not on the same page. So I think that definitely helped because there's more, like they always call it, the doc in a box. So if you pass all these tests and everything's good, then you stop there. But sometimes you shouldn't stop there. You're just kind of feeling off. And at the time that I was pushing it, I was having more symptoms along the line of numbness, like
Oh,
in
wow.
my groin area and things like that. And
Oh,
I
wow.
thought a hernia, or this is a little bit weird, but it didn't turn out to be that. So I'm very glad that I just kept
Right.
pursuing it.
So how did you finally get to the right doctor that gave you your diagnosis?
Well, it's a weird story because, and I go into this a little bit in the book, my husband and I had just moved to a new area. So we had moved up from southern Venice. So basically the doctors that I knew and where I had started this process were now 2.5 hours away from me. So we're in a new house. We just finally built like our dream house. Haven't had everything put away. There's, still where are we going to put this? And then all of a sudden, I'm like, I have to find a new doctor. I have to do these tests that the doctor who was in South Florida recommended, and I have to continue this process. And it's difficult because you think, okay, I'm totally brand new. I know it's going to be the standard 3 months for an appointment or 6
Yeah,
months for an
crazy.
appointment. Yeah, and I felt like I didn't want to wait for that. And in a way, things just kind of aligned correctly because the first few places that I called to get into an OBGYN just basically told me either they're not accepting new patients or the first appointment would be, 5 months from now. And I just thought,
Jeez.
no, that's not something I want to do. Yeah, and that's typical. I'm sure other people have probably ran into that as well. So I just said, okay, if you had somebody that you would recommend if your calendar was completely full, who would be that next person? And I just kept moving to the next person until I found somebody who had an opening, and it just happened that they had some cancellations and they were like, oh, if you want to come in, we can see you on Friday. And, this is a Wednesday. So I thought, okay, I'm going to do that. So I did that process and then had gotten some of my testing done that my prior doctor had recommended. And that OBGYN said, it's probably nothing, you don't have any of these symptoms, whatever, but you want the test. We're going to do this test. And he said the typical 2 weeks for the results. And he called me like maybe a week later at the latest. And then it was, this isn't what we expected, but you have cancer and you need to have surgery or explore these other options for you. So then it became all about, okay, finding a surgeon, finding, somebody who deals with this type of cancer.
Well, Lisa, that story just exemplifies the fact that we all have to be our own advocates. And,
Absolutely.
today it's crazy. So what did that feel like when you got that diagnosis, when you heard this doctor say, we were wrong, this is cancer? And what type of cancer were you diagnosed with?
The short version is endometrial, but the long version is endometrial adenocarcinoma. So you basically, the feeling is just you get knocked for a loop. I think probably 3 days after that, I don't think I got out of bed. And, you're just overwhelmed because I'm thinking, I've led a pretty normal life. I don't really drink. I don't do drugs,
Yeah.
nothing of that nature. And I thought, maybe I should have, you get kind of that feeling. So,
Sure. I've
you're
been there.
just, yeah.
So
You're
now
just
I know that you're so I'm sorry, go ahead. I interrupted
No,
you.
I was going to say you're just kind of thinking about, where did I zig when I should have zagged, basically.
Yeah, that's wow, that must have been so hard because you're going back thinking, "What did I do wrong? Maybe I should have done this instead of that," like you were saying, and probably just making things worse. The mind is so powerful, you can use it for good or bad, but I can
That's
imagine how
absolute.
overwhelming it must have felt, though, to get that diagnosis.
It definitely was. And just like it felt very much out of left field, not even in the realm of
Yeah.
possibilities. And when I did sit down with who would ultimately end up being my surgeon, he said, "You're not the typical patient that I get." It just kind of validates this whole thing like, okay,
Yeah.
if I'm not the typical patient, why now? And he said, really, you only check one of the boxes out of 6 to 10 risk factors. You check one. And so
Wow.
that was kind of eye opening because you always think, oh, well, I'm low risk or whatever. But out of those 10, if I check one, I'm 10% at that risk, just doing simple math. So that was a little bit difficult to hear.
Oh, I can only imagine. Lisa, how long was the time frame, if you remember, from when you first started noticing symptoms to getting a diagnosis? Do you have any idea? Was it like a year, 6 months?
From
How
when
long?
I first started the process, it was definitely probably like about 3 to 4 months. And then we had moved in the middle of that 3 to 4 months.
Major life
So,
event right in the middle, right? Wow.
right. And so, you know, I think God has a sense of humor in that regard. But from the actual time that I got the phone call with my OBGYN saying, hey, you have cancer and I need to do this referral, to the time that I chose the surgical option was really like not even 2 weeks. So it was
Yeah.
really fast. And I just knew, okay, I want the fastest option and I want to be done with it and just get it out. So that was really what I was going after, was speed and efficiency. I felt like that's what I needed to kind of get back to normalcy for my life.
So what kind of
Actually,
surgery did you have, Lisa?
the easiest part is to say robotic, and I don't know
Robotics.
if you like movies, but there's this 1950s movie poster that I like that has a robot carrying this woman, and I often think, hey, that robot was my surgeon because it
It's
gives a little.
amazing, really. Yeah, it
Yeah.
was like the Jetsons. I remember if I was a kid watching the Jetsons, and now we have like robots doing surgery. But
Yeah,
but anyway, go
it's
ahead.
pretty amazing. But I was able to have laparoscopic, and it's actually kind of funny because you still have 5 scars. But when you get the 5 scars and when you're going through that healing process, everybody comes in and counts the scars. Let me count the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So it at first annoyed me, and then I thought it was funny because as the follow-up appointments came, I kind of made that a game, saying who's going to be the first person to count the scars,
Oh my
So
gosh.
it was just finding humor in the small moments.
Yeah, and that's something you talk about a lot in the book, which I love is finding humor. It's so important in life. Can you expand upon that a little bit, like for anyone going through this? A
Absolutely.
diagnosis, maybe they have surgery or not, or treatment.
Absolutely. I think that humor is really important because otherwise, you're right, your mind does go down the rabbit hole and you keep thinking, I don't really think I ever thought, why me? But I did a lot of the, how did I get to this point? And when you do, then your mind just hijacks you and your pulse raises and your chest pounds. And you really have to make a conscious decision to say, okay, how do I get myself out of this? And one of the things that I've always relied on is humor. So even, I'm less than, I think I was maybe 24 hours post-op, and I was talking to my sister at this point, and I told her, I'm just going to throw caution to the wind and try something new. And she's basically asking me, well, what exactly does that look like? And I said, skydiving. And she
Oh
said,
my goodness.
she said, really? Hang on a second. She said, aren't you still afraid of heights? And I said, yes. And she said, why don't you start with having Carl, who's my husband, having Carl just push you off the bed and see how you feel about falling from that height before you try skydiving? And it was so funny and just like so true to my sister, but my guts are hurting at this point and I'm still in a lot of
Sure.
pains. I have this pillow pushed up against the area and I'm just laughing so hard I can't breathe. So I tried to really cultivate those moments and just silly little things that would make me laugh and help me remember, hey, I'm still here, I'm still alive. People around me aren't going to treat me any differently because I have had this cancer and I have a lot of support. So evidently, I should choose humor more often because it's been such a good circumstance for me before.
I'm sure that's pretty disarming for people. I will say I've known people that have had cancer, and it seems like other people aren't sure how to approach them. They're afraid of saying the wrong things. Did you go through any of that, Lisa? People? Yeah.
Yeah, actually, I did a little bit. And I think it was more with maybe people that you know on a tangent, so not like your closer friends, but one of the things that stands out in my mind as I'm getting prepped for surgery, they were asking me all these questions and was answering no to everything. And then they would look at you like, well, why are you here? And then, all the health questions are no. And then all of a sudden, you say, oh, well, yes, I am here because I have cancer. And then all of a sudden you see the people's faces kind of drop and they're like, so like
Yeah.
they didn't expect it. And I do also think it's hard because I think people tend to be maybe overly thinking how they should approach somebody who's had cancer instead of just speaking to them like they always have. You get the people who very much are like, okay, what can I do for you? How can I help you? And that piece is a little overwhelming. And then you get the other people who you can just tell they're totally tiptoeing and walking on eggshells. And that was something, if I noticed somebody was doing that, I would try to refocus them into something else. I mean, even people who know me well would say, oh, well, at least you don't have to worry about having a menstrual cycle anymore. And I was like, oh, fantastic. Thanks for thanks for that reminder. So it was kind
Sure.
of things like that. But even the pieces of humor, I really did appreciate. And even so far as my surgeon, when I was in and talking to him during the follow-up processes, he would say things like, well, look on the bright side, you're never getting ovarian cancer or you're never going to get cervical cancer. And I thought, well, yeah. And, that was kind of funny to me that he would say that, but evidently I was putting people in the right place where they could be themselves and maybe say something that somebody else would deem inappropriate, but that I needed to hear so I could laugh about it and be like, oh, good point.
Yeah, so you kind of set the tone by expressing that humor to other
Right,
people and kind of probably putting them more at ease too. Because I would say, as just speaking for myself, it is hard when somebody you love is diagnosed with cancer. You really don't know what to say or how to handle it. Like you want to do the right thing, but you're so
right.
afraid of hurting that person's feelings or making them feel bad that it is tough from the outside, I guess.
Absolutely. And really, I didn't realize like even how big an impact the diagnosis had on my husband because on the outside, he's being very strong for me and showing up and really helping me research my options and looking at what this 5-year trajectory of appointments and follow-ups and things look like. And I'm thinking, okay, great. He's helping me through this process. But in the back of his head, he's thinking, am I going to lose my wife? And he is
Yeah.
dealing with that in the background, and he's trying not to show that to me. And I would say my siblings were also doing the same thing. They were thinking, hey, am I going to lose my sister? And that's always in the background of their mind. So I don't think I really realized that at the time when I was in my heavy treatment phase, how much of an impact that had on them. But afterwards, some of the things that they've told me since that time really made me say to myself, I didn't understand how that impacts the people around you and the people who know
Sure.
you and the people who love you. They're in it right with you. I mean, the stuff is happening to your body and the treatments are happening to you, but they're very much engaged in that process.
And Lisa, your mom passed away from cancer.
She did. She actually had a different cancer than I did. She had bladder cancer. And she's the strongest person I knew. And in my head, I'm thinking, if she's the strongest person I know and she can't survive, why am I? And so you do the mental gymnastics around that as well. And that's very difficult because you're thinking, okay, so where do I go from here? What do I do? What are the steps that I can take that will make me feel more comfortable and more confident in my treatment?
Yeah, and I'm sure that that was on the mind of your siblings and your husband too, that experience with your mom.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I think my husband was more probably keenly aware, even than my siblings were, about that thought just replaying over and over in my head. And you really do have to get out of the mindset where you're thinking about it all the time. You have to get into more of a healing mindset and saying, okay, I'm not comfortable with whatever it is you're not comfortable with, and follow that process through. Basically, ask yourself, okay, well, what would make me more comfortable? And then if I do this, what's a potential outcome? And just kind of working those scenarios. So even for me, that meant things like if I was uncomfortable about something or if I was really, really nervous, then I would just call my doctor. And I was surprised, honestly, at how many times he answered the call. Or if he couldn't get back to me right away, he would make that effort to call me back and answer whatever questions I had. So that to me was fantastic to have that feedback loop and to feel like I got really personalized attention versus other experiences I've had medically.
Wow, that is reassuring. I'm glad that you had a good experience, at least with your doctor, being
Yeah.
responsive and getting back to you. That's pretty amazing.
Yeah, I would say they did a really good job with that and just really answering all the questions. And, they made me feel comfortable enough in the points where I was afraid. I could tell them, hey, I'm scared. This is totally outside my wheelhouse and like nothing I've ever experienced before. Help me not be scared. And the guidance that they gave at that point was really good.
Excellent. Now, Lisa, your book is called Rising After Cancer: Five Secrets to Healing with Hope, Humor, and Heart. You recently
Yes.
released it, within the last couple of weeks as of this recording.
Yes.
Yeah. And so, what made you decide to write a book?
Well, one of the things that I found out is, after you get, so I'm in basically, I would say like a year and a half post cancer. So after my heavy treatments have been done. So I'm in that period with 5 years of follow up. So you do your quarterly checks and you do testing and things of that nature just to make sure there aren't any problems. And so really what happens is you go from this high treatment phase to this high amount of activity phase. And then it's like, hey, kid, you're healed. Get out of here. And then you're done. Everybody kind of goes back to your normal lives and you start thinking you have a lot more time to think for yourself and basically overanalyze things. And I thought, I probably can't be the only person who's going through this where you're thinking, okay, what am I supposed to do after cancer? How am I supposed to feel? What activities do I do? And that's what really prompted me to write the book because it seems like there's this space where I almost want to call it uncertainty, or maybe your confidence gets rattled and you're thinking, do I have to limit myself because of the cancer I had? So, can I go and travel internationally? How far is too far from my doctors? All of those types of things become big considerations. And how do you get past that? So it's more like reframing your mind and finding the things that are going to make you laugh. And one of the things for me, I always did want to write a book. So Rising After Cancer is actually my second book. I did write a real estate and investment book, which is one of my passions. And I wrote that book basically 3 months after I had my surgery. So I thought, I'm going
Wow.
to go ahead and write it, get it out there and do it now. And I did that. So things like that and really leaning into all the uniqueness that makes you feel better and all the uniqueness that's you just because you've had a diagnosis. And it doesn't even have to be cancer. It could be something like a car accident, it could be cardiac
Mhm.
problems, it could be whatever. You're still there, you're still alive, you still get to choose what you do next, and you still get to choose the next chapter for you. You don't have to be limited by a diagnosis or your own mindset, really. And that's what prompted me to write Rising After Cancer, because I didn't want people to say, okay, I've had this. Now I've got to shrink into this unfulfilled life where I'm waiting for the next shoe to drop. So
Yeah.
that's what prompted me, really.
Well, it's excellent. And I love chapter 2, which is all about living a limitless life. I mean, kind of speaks to what you just said. And, I know from just people I've had in my life that they've gone through all those things you just described, like feeling like they can't do the things they did before, or they need to kind of like put themselves in a box and not do certain things post diagnosis and treatment.
Absolutely. And you do feel like, should I be doing this? And that thought's always in the back of your head. Okay, given my scars, do I need to be more careful when I do a stretch? Or should I be riding my bicycle? Or just weird, random stuff that you have to kind of get past that. And that's really what the refusing to downgrade your future is about. It is, you don't have to, like, I wanted to write the book. That didn't change because of cancer. I went ahead and wrote it. So it's still like prompting you to do the things you want to do. One of the biggest things for me was international travel. So my surgery was in April, and then I was supposed to go to Barcelona with my niece and nephew and husband. And I actually canceled that trip because I thought, I'm just not comfortable being that far away from my doctor. I thought, well, okay, what can you do to make yourself more comfortable? And then you go out and you do those things. So I actually did go on a sailing adventure with my niece, nephew, and husband just this past September. So even though it got postponed for a little bit, I finally was like, okay, we're going to go do this, and I'm okay with that.
Nice.
It's just reframing the things that bother you. And if something's making you uncomfortable, then change that perspective and go ahead and figure out the why behind it and what would make you feel better about that situation. That's something that I definitely want to encourage people to do, because any type of thing you've had, like even if it's a heart condition or whatever, if you sit there and you think, oh, okay, I can't do this because I don't want to get my blood pressure elevated, or I don't want to whatever, you're limiting what you can do instead of asking yourself, okay, how can I be more comfortable and just do that thing?
Yeah, I love that. And I love that maybe you didn't go on the Barcelona trip, but then you went on a sailing adventure
Yeah.
later. And so you kind of just shifted. You still had an adventure. Maybe it changed a little bit, but that sounds like awesome, by the way. That sounded like that would be a lot of fun.
It definitely was, and I was challenging myself. I'm actually a white-knuckled sailor, but our nephew and my husband are big sailors. It's funny because this trip, I thought, okay, I'm just going to experience whatever it is and be okay with it. So it was a lot of fun. We rented a sailboat and cruised around Croatia. So that was really nice.
Oh, lovely. That's awesome.
Yeah.
And one of the thing I love about your book is that you don't just talk about these things and like in shifting your mindset, you actually give readers practical things that they can do, or questions to ask themselves. Like I love the one about finding joy.
Yes.
Even if it's just like dancing around your kitchen to your favorite songs. So tell us a little bit about, like, share a few of those things. We don't want to give away the whole book because we want everybody to go on Amazon and get it. But what are some things, a couple of things that you can share that can help cancer survivors, no matter where they are in their journey, kind of change that mindset so that they're not limiting their lives?
Well, one of the things that I always do to craft joy, I do, and it's kind of silly, like I would never, ever, ever do it for anybody probably other than my husband, and in the past, a couple of pets that I've had. But
Pets are non-judgmental, so that's great. Yeah.
exactly, they may look at you like, but they never say anything, so it's perfect. So I just got back to being silly. And one of the things that I would do is just randomly start singing a song. I would do stuff like a breakfast opera where I'm just singing about whatever I'm making for breakfast. And
Great.
just like, random things like that to be able to get out there and really craft joy and infuse that back into your life instead of being so focused on the diagnosis. because I think that's what happens. Anytime you feel happy or whatever, your mind will hijack you and get back to, hey, you have cancer, and it's
Yeah.
important not to let that happen. So you have to have these little moments that just make you say, okay, let's go ahead and do this. I'm going to wear that bright, bold sweater that's been at the back of my closet, or, just little things. It doesn't have to be major.
Yeah, absolutely. But they're little things that can really shift your mindset though. I mean, they may seem small, but I mean, I know for myself, just like dancing around, putting on one of my favorite songs and just dancing around my kitchen makes me feel better. If I'm having a bad day or something happens, it doesn't even have to be something as serious as cancer, but I feel like these are little things that can make a huge difference.
Absolutely. And even if you have a favorite comedian or you have
Yeah.
some podcast that really resonates with you, listen to those things just as reminders. And sometimes, too, I even think it's helpful to hear other people's stories. One of the ladies that I interacted with at the cancer center, she was actually a breast cancer survivor. And just hearing her story and kind of the funny things she did, she actually chose to shave her head right away because she said psychologically, I can't go through losing all my hair. And then she would put cute little brightly colored flowers, on her hair,
Aw,
on the little,
awesome.
I should say, on the little strand, like my headset and stuff like that. Just those little moments that you can remind yourself that you're alive. So, favorite music, music that pumps you up, being around the people who are going to be uplifting and, friends, neighbors, family. I think that helps. And you just get in that zone that you're, okay, I can survive this. Okay, I know what I need to do. And I'm going to do it. And then just do it and be silly and embrace whatever makes you happy.
And in that example you gave of the breast cancer survivor shaving her head, it's almost like to me, it feels like she also took control of the situation by
Absolutely.
doing that and kind of felt like she was in control of it. Cancer wasn't controlling her, like she was in the driver's seat.
Absolutely. And that was one thing in talking to her that made me say, okay, you go through, and she was kind of opposite from me. Like, she checked all of the boxes. So she had definitely worst case scenario on everything, whereas I only checked one of the boxes for symptoms. But some of the things that I learned, like for me, I was very much, okay, if I don't survive this, what do I need to do to make sure my husband has everything he needs to be able to continue his life? So you go through and you do those things, and people are like, oh, well, maybe you shouldn't because that's kind of grim. But by the same token, you want to protect the people that you love. And you don't want to make things hard on them because if the worst case scenario happens, that's going to be hard enough. So, not to be morbid, but you do have that
Well,
in the back of your head.
it's funny. I recently interviewed an estate planning attorney. And it was in the month of December. Today we're recording, it's December 16th, 2025. So it's the Christmas season. And I opened the interview by saying, like, this might seem like a morbid topic, but it's really the best gift you can give to your loved ones. And it also will give you peace of mind. So in this example, even though you're working towards the best case scenario, by doing that, kind of getting your affairs in order for your husband and your loved ones, it just kind of gives you peace of mind and you can sort of not worry about that anymore.
Absolutely. And it was one of those things back when my husband and I were in Hawaii. We actually did chocolate manufacturing and we had 16 employees at that point. And he and I took probably like almost a year to put something together, like if something happened to both of us, to make sure
Wow.
the business would continue, our employees would get paid, and you just wouldn't have this massive negative outcome from something happening to us. So it takes a while to get to the point where you can do that and you can think about those types of things, but I definitely think it's prudent and not really morbid. It's just a way to make sure you're getting how the outcome you want for the people you love.
Exactly, because at some point, I mean, whether it's cancer or things happen, right? Whether it's cancer
Right.
or something else or a car accident, you want to know that once it's your time to leave this earth, that your loved ones are taken care of. And I think that you can't put a price tag on that kind of peace of mind.
Absolutely. And, you even have the considerations like if something happens, what do I want to happen to me? So you get into all like the really morbid stuff, but
Yeah.
you just have to turn the analytical mind on and flip the switch at that point and just say, okay, from a practical standpoint, and kind of take the emotion out of that. Versus when you're, going through and rising after cancer, when you're going through and crafting this limited life, or limitless life, that's a totally different mindset. And so it's almost like two parts of the whole. You still need to do the not fun stuff, but that's not what you should focus on. That's just a kind of a one and done type thing.
And Lisa, I know you sort of alluded to this already, but I think you dedicate chapter 4, it's called Healing Happens Together, to the importance of a team. So can you expand on that a little bit more for our listeners and anybody out there who may be dealing with cancer right now?
Absolutely. Really, I didn't necessarily intend to craft my own team, but I started out with basically when I got my diagnosis, I just sent text messages to people and I said, probably something that I can't say on the air. And then,
Yeah.
by the way, I have cancer. And then I said, don't talk to me. I just don't want to talk, but I wanted to let you know. And, put out messages like that to people. And then it was amazing after doing that, people just started stepping forward like, oh my God, I didn't think that that would be the case. What do you need? Can I make you dinner? And all those sorts of things. And at first you're like, "Well, I don't really want the attention. It feels very uncomfortable." But as you go through the mental gymnastics of the diagnosis plus the practicalities of the treatment, then you're like, well, actually, I could use the help. So you start to kind of build your team and people show up. So definitely my husband was a big part of my healing. He was there through the entire process and just really my rock, making sure we got everywhere we needed to be. And then in addition to that, friends, just like the friends that you can rely on, even if you haven't spoken to them in 2 or 3 years, once they find out, all of a sudden they're like, okay, do you want me to come sit with you? Do you need to talk? You can call me anytime. So you just start cultivating that team of people who, and I'll use the example, one of my friends, I could say stuff to her that scared me that I couldn't really say to my husband because during the time you don't want to, like, he's doing the practical stuff and he's staying strong. I don't want to say something to him that would like push him off that mark, you know what I mean? And rattle him or let him know that I was thinking the ways I was thinking. But I could say that to some of my other friends. It's important from the standpoint that you get the outlets that you need, plus you have the people giving you the gentle reminders, just like nudging you back. So I remember one of the times, and I talk about this a little bit with my surgeon actually being on my healing team, and kind of in a funny way because I had an amazing surgeon. He was very dry sense of humor, almost like an engineer. But I went in and I said, I still have this numbness, and this numbness is driving me crazy. And I just went through this whole litany of things, and he listened and he just turned around and he looked at me. Hey, Lisa, it's better than dead. Just having him say that. And I was kind of like, whoa, but it definitely helped like shift the mindset. Okay, can I deal with numbness? Yes. And am I happy to be here? Yes. So basically shut up, so that was kind of the practical thing that very much rang true in my head.
You had that kind of relationship with your doctor.
Yeah, it was funny
really cool.
because it wouldn't have been one that I expected, because if you would have met him, you would have been like, this guy's really dry, but maybe he'll just be good, and that's good. Let him be dry and good.
Bedside manner, as long as he's good. Yeah.
Yeah, but he actually was both, which surprised me a little bit.
Well, that's amazing. I think all oncologists and all medical people treating cancer patients, really any kind of patient, should try to cultivate a sense of humor because it's so healing and it's disarming and it sort of takes the person out of themselves.
Right.
While they're going through that.
And I do think it's really important in Hawaii, and I'll just touch on this a little bit. I had a really good friend who was a professional Ironman. She was doing the bicycle and the swim and the marathon at the end. And she had gotten hit while she was training. Somebody hit her on a bike,
Oh
and
my
that just
gosh.
basically like ended her Ironman career. But even though I haven't spoken to her basically since we moved to Hawaii, I kept hearing her voice in my head because I said to her, that must have been devastating. How can you go from having this career and pursuing it and being so physically fit, and then you're basically like in a body cast for however long she was in a body
Oh
cast?
my. Wow.
Yeah, so it was very serious. And she said the problem that people run into is they think about, well, I used to be able to do this. And then you go down the rabbit hole and you wallow kind of in that, oh, well, before I could do this, and now I can't. And she said you have to flip the switch where you just are saying, okay, today I can do this. How can I make that better? And so when she was really part of my team because I had that in the back of my head. So, okay, maybe my stomach's very uncomfortable today. How can I make that better? So, I got in the habit of like pressing a pillow against there when I was walking around. And in a way, what she had told me inspired me to help me heal through my process. So, not question basically the stuff that you've lost or that you feel you lose, but making each day better than the last. And it just is small actions that you're repeating consistently that get you to the next level.
It sounds like being really grounded in the present and not extrapolating out like to the future.
Absolutely. Just being very, okay, this is where I'm at. This is where I want to be today. And then you do that
Yeah.
little thing and celebrate the small little victory of whatever the thing is. And I talk about this in Rising After the Cancer, where the first thing for me was walking to the mailbox. And the mailbox isn't at the end of my driveway, to be clear, but being able to make
Yeah.
that walk and then just adding to it. So we made that walk, made the return trip, and then I was like, yay! So
Sure. Yeah.
it doesn't have to be a major thing. It just has to be something that creates momentum for you.
Yeah. These little victories over time add up. And
Exactly.
and I don't know how you feel about this, Lisa. I'm a big proponent of journaling, like writing down gratitude, writing down, like, for example, today I walked to the mailbox and back, and
Yes.
kind of building on that and then seeing it. Something about writing it and seeing it, it just sort of helps build that momentum, I think.
Absolutely, and it makes it tangible because I
Yes.
think sometimes you forget at how far you've come to where you are now, and having something, even just small reminders or notes in your phone. I'll put stuff in my calendar like today I made it a mile and a half, and those types of
Yes.
things just to remind you so that the next time you're out and you're really crushing your goals, you're all of a sudden have something tangible to say, okay, this is actually where I started and this is where I am now. And it is important. It is a good reminder to be thankful and to realize, hey, there were other outcomes and you didn't experience those and you kept going. So I think that
Yeah.
helps foster the gratitude that you have.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, Lisa, is there anything you want to share with people who may be listening who don't have cancer, but they're dealing with a loved one? Say it's a husband, wife, friend, sister, brother. What is your advice to people as to how they can best support the person in their life that they love who has cancer?
Really, one of the things that I felt very supportive in was when people would just reach out to me. And it didn't have to be, a lot of people post stuff on Facebook. And I actually have to admit, I never posted anything on Facebook about my cancer until I was past like the treatment part. Because sometimes I think the Facebook thing feels uncomfortable or whatever.
I agree. Yeah.
But certainly responding to people if somebody sends you a text message. And just like in an example, I have a friend who's going through cancer treatment right now for a pretty aggressive cancer. And I'm reaching out to his wife and just saying, hey, is there anything that you need? Or I saw this post that you did. How are you guys doing? And it's only like a few second contact, maybe a little bit of back and forth. But those are the small moments that help. So even if you're not sure like how to approach somebody or you're uncomfortable, because definitely anything that happens to your body is super personal. You could just send that message. I had heard whatever, how are you doing? And I wanted to reach out to you, or, just a simple, we're thinking of you. Is there anything we can do to help? Or even just, you know, I'm here to talk. If you ever need to talk, let's have coffee. It doesn't have to be a big gesture. It can just be really crafting the feeling that people know that you're in their corner. So if there is somebody that
Yes.
that's going through something traumatic, just letting them know, hey, I'm praying for you, or you're in my thoughts. Just the simple stuff, I think, in a lot of ways.
I'm sure just knowing that somebody's taking the time to reach out to you is just kind of like, hey, I'm thinking of you. It just feels good. Even if you don't take them up on their offer to do anything, just getting that communication.
Right, absolutely. And just even that small sentence, oh, you're on my heart, I'm thinking about
Sure.
you. Something easy. It doesn't have to be grand gestures, because it's all the little easy moments and the little kindnesses that add up and keep people going and keep people motivated to heal. And I think that helps the most.
And even send them a little funny meme or something you saw online that's, that you thought would make them laugh. Or I love dog videos, so especially happy
Yeah.
ones. So,
Yeah, that's funny because
dogs being
mine's
rescued. Sorry.
yeah, no, I totally get that, because mine's definitely cat videos. Any kind
Oh,
of
cats too. Yeah.
yeah, the crazy cat
Yeah.
videos, and, just something that's fun or funny,
Yeah.
or,
Yeah.
light.
It's something that the person likes, like whether they love animals or whatever it is.
You can keep the contact lighthearted, do something
Mhm.
that feels natural. And the other advice
Yeah.
I would give is don't overthink it, because I think a lot of people get consumed with, well, I need to approach this in the right way.
Uh-huh.
And that's not necessarily the case, because certainly around me, I wanted people to be who they were. I didn't want them to walk on eggshells. So, you know,
That's a great way of putting it. Yeah.
yeah. And I think that contact is most important, the natural stuff.
Mhm. Yeah, like, you probably don't want people treating you differently just because, "Oh, like, now Lisa has cancer, so I have to walk on eggshells," like you said. You just want people to be themselves.
Absolutely. And you just want them to be who they were and treat you how they treated you before. So, no special treatment. If you're still going to make a joke about me, I want you to do it now as well. So I think that's important. And it does help you create kind of this healing energy around you. And you do have a team of people that are like your go to people.
Yeah. Now, what about flipping that around now back for patients? Anyone out there listening who's dealing with cancer? Is there anything we didn't touch on in terms of treatment and their approach to dealing with their own cancer?
Well, I think one of the things that was important for me is learning what your options are, because I think so many times you have a knee-jerk reaction and you push the easy button, which isn't necessarily maybe the best option. So I would say take a step back and really look at what your options are and dial into how you're feeling about them and what feels right to you, because I think at your core, you know what feels right to you. And then you actually have to do that thing. So they're saying, okay, this is what I've committed to. Then you need to do your part to heal that thing, whatever it is. You need to listen to the doctors and just participate in your own recovery, because you can't recover if you're not engaged with the process.
Yes, I'm a big believer, a big proponent of you have to be a participant in your health. You can't just outsource it. If even if you have the greatest doctor in the world, they can only do so much, and then you have to do your part. I mean, you play an active role in your healing.
And I think people forget that, because I think culturally we're very much like, oh, here's a pill for that, and I'll take the pill because it's
Unfortunately,
the easy button,
yeah,
when easy isn't necessarily the thing that's going to get you where you want to be.
yeah, exactly. Well, Lisa, it has been so great interviewing you
Thank
today. I'm
you, Daria.
super excited. This is gonna help so many people. So tell us, is there a way that for people to reach out to you or find you? I'm gonna put the book information in the show description.
Excellent. Yes, they can actually email me at boundlessquill@gmail.com. So if they want to reach out and just whatever they want to tell me is fine. If something really resonated with them, that is something that is valuable to me. So I like hearing people's responses and I like feedback, and certainly sharing their stories with me is great. Anything like that would be fine to send an email.
Excellent. And I'm going to put the link to the book, which is available in Kindle and paperback. It's on Amazon right now, Rising After Cancer. I encourage everyone to get it. And even from the perspective of a friend or a loved one of someone else who has cancer, I think the book is so valuable for the insights it shares. And maybe even share that with someone you know who's dealing with cancer right now, because it's just a great guide.
Thank you. And I hope that even if just one of the 5 secrets helps somebody, then I did my job. And that would make me feel happy, because I know there were a lot of times during my heavy periods of the treatment where I felt uncertain and just really a mess. So maybe if I can shorten that time frame or that feeling for somebody else, that would be very rewarding.
That's awesome. Lisa, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you,
And
Daria. I appreciate it.
it was a pleasure, and we'll be speaking with you soon.
Great. Thank you so much. Have a good day.
You too, and thank you everyone for listening.
Thank you.
Hi everyone. I hope you enjoyed today's episode of True Voice Unfiltered. And if you're a busy professional who wants to leverage the power of a book, blogs, or other content as evergreen brand assets that help you reach your ideal audience, attract more clients, and expand your brand and influence, I welcome you to schedule your free 30-minute discovery call with me. At True Voice Writing Services, I offer professional storytelling in your authentic voice. And in this age of AI, authenticity is more important than ever. I have ghostwritten over a dozen books, edited many, many more, have written SEO optimized blogs for the past 10 years, and I know how to project your voice, infuse your voice in all content, set you up as the authority and trusted guide in your field, and help you enjoy greater success with personalized content that speaks to your audience. So go ahead and contact me at truevoicewritingservices.com. You can click on this contact button. Reach out to me today. Tell me your story over a virtual cup of coffee. I just ask you to complete this little mini questionnaire, I'll call it. Just a few questions to help me understand a little bit more about you and your business and what your goals are with your content, whether it's books, blogs, press releases, lead magnets, email sequences. I offer a variety of writing services, and I certainly have experience ghostwriting full-length books that my clients use to leverage other things, such as an online course, mastermind groups, one-on-one coaching, workbooks, and other CTAs, which are calls to action. So I invite you to visit me at truevoicewritingservices.com, click on the contact page, reach out to me today. I help purpose-driven professionals transform ideas and expertise into compelling content that builds authority, nurtures trust, and inspires action. With decades of experience ghostwriting books and writing strategic content across multiple industries, I apply clarity, creativity, precision, and your unique brand to every project. Your book is your brand, and I look forward to helping you express yourself through the written word. Contact me at truevoicewritingservices.com, and let's schedule your complimentary 30-minute discovery call today. Thanks for listening.